unacceptable. I think sides are being chosen. And I do see the petrodollar as something that is on the way out. It's very important to remember that, and it's funny that no one else talks about this but me, and maybe I'm just out there. I don't know. But you mentioned two things. You mentioned the banking system, and you mentioned the petrodollar. Look, the atrocities of war are horrible. What we've seen on TV, if we can believe it, is as awful as it gets. And but you're right. I mean, maybe there are motivations behind it, but the two things that I find very interesting, and you can talk about how this would accelerate both, would be the fact that the number one advisor to the president of the United States, his name is Jared Bernstein, and he's a man who advocates, his singular biggest platform, advocates for relinquishing the world reserve status, that it's a privilege we can no longer afford. And I don't know about you, but the first thing that I would do would be to weaponize the dollar. The second thing that I would do would be to sign an executive order and tell Saudi Arabia we're going green after we just sanctioned and confiscated all of Russia's Forex reserves. And you couldn't do two things that would, I think, harm the world reserve status more than weaponizing the world reserve currency and telling the linchpin of the dollar hegemony that we are going green. You look at the number two advisor, Lael Brainerd. These are the top two economic advisors to the Biden administration, and she is a modern monetary theorist whose whole mantra is to cull the banks, cull them down to a handful of very large commercial banks, just a few, and let all money go back and forth between the central bank and the central bank digital currency. Now, when she was at the Fed, I believe the Boston Fed, she worked with MIT in developing the new CBDC that Biden fast-tracked with an executive order as per the Bank of International Settlement mandate 2025. And she also ran point for Fed Now. When you look at the things that are happening around us, you guys, whether it be the divisiveness in this country, the divisiveness about everything, whether it be about this war or the Ukraine war, or about blue and red or black and white or rich or poor or vaccine or no vaccine, or any cryptocurrency or hard asset. I mean, anything you want to look at, there's such divisiveness. And the divisiveness in this country, that the lack of unity in this country and the mistakes that we are making globally will have an impact. Now, when you talk about, will the war have an impact on this? Sure it will. Absolutely it will. And you could see maybe this begins World War III. Maybe the idea behind this, if you look for bigger pictures in a world where reality and pessimism there's a very thin line between it, or even reality and being conspiratorial have a very thin line between them. But maybe this was done to drag us into a war with Iran. Now, what does that mean now that they've joined the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and the BRICS? The Shanghai Cooperation Organization is the largest regional military and financial organization on the planet. What does that mean? I don't know, but I'll tell you, I don't know the answer to this other than to say it's a horrible atrocity, and it's probably going to accelerate things. And I guess I would simply say, let me add one last thing, and that is that I've done over 1,200 videos in the last 3.5 years. And what to me has become so shocking is the acceleration of events that have, it started out at the beginning little by little, and now it's bang, 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 bang every single day. We're the closest to defaulting on debt in decades. We removed the Speaker of the House. We have now 2 wars that we're involved in. We got mortgage rates at their highest level in almost 25 years. We got the fires in Hawaii, the spill in Palestine, Ohio. We have OPEC making voluntary cuts in oil. We got oil to the highest level it's been in over a year. We have record debt, both household at 17 trillion, mortgage at 12, student debt at 1.6 trillion, which, by the way, is the United States government largest asset of over 40%, which is pretty pathetic, and over 1 trillion in credit card debt. We're not prepared. We're not unified for an event. And maybe this is the match that lights that fuse. But whatever it is, I can simply tell you that you can feel in the air things are getting much faster in their expressions. Oh, we just happened to do an emergency broadcasting, a prop. Here's what could happen. Get ready. We got everyone's cell phone. Well, geez, with an election around the corner and all of these things that we keep talking about, that's why I believe there's a very fine line between conspiracy and reality. I used to speak at conferences years ago, a decade ago, and I would show charts at the AM and the PM fixed at gold and silver, and I'd say, this market's fucking manipulated, period. It does not go bang like that and bang like that at AM, PM fixed, because there was a guy named Dimitri Speck, and he would make one chart that had 10 years worth of market data in it, in the metals market. And his chart, this big, had 10 years condensed into one chart. Every day at the AM fix in London at 2 a.m, bang. Every day the PM fix as it hit New York, bang. Like a waterfall. I'm like, this is manipulated. And then I would show the JP Morgan stuff and I would be like, this is, how do you people not see this? And I'll never forget, Doug Casey came up behind me and said, he's wrong. Traders at JP Morgan could never keep their mouths shut long enough. That's a conspiracy. Well, 3 JP Morgan traders, including their head trader, are now in prison for manipulating the market, and they paid a $920 million fine to the Justice Department a year and a half ago, the largest fine ever at that point. The point of it is that a lot of these things that make you feel, could that be conspiracy? They're not. When they seem so obvious to be true, and they make you feel like it's a conspiracy, geez, you got to wonder nowadays that, there are a lot of things that make you go, and that be one of them. When you're trying to speak truth on alternative media, this is something you have to deal with. There will be people that will tell you you're conspiratorial. And being vindicated and validated sometimes really doesn't even feel good, because it just means that it's become so obvious that, hey, we should really actually be worried more than we should say, I told you so. But a lot of these things, I think, are highly probable. And what is the end game? I think when you try to figure out logic, you start from where you think end game is and work backwards. And like trying to lose the world reserve currency. Well, weaponizing it, that's bad. That's not the privilege of the country that holds the reserve status. That should be for world opinion. And to say to Saudi Arabia, we don't need you anymore, we're going green. Well, it's the protection of the Saudi kingdom and the fact that they will value oil in dollars that gives us the world reserve currency. Well, are we really trying to do this? Are the things that we are doing, which seem just confounding and idiotic, could we really be trying to level the playing field, to reset the system? And, I look at the banks, by the way, and I don't mean to skip all over, but it's all part of a bigger narrative. The banks, they're going to collapse. And, I bet you even some of the people who watch your show, who are very well informed, don't know what a bail-in is and don't understand that when the Dodd-Frank law was written, bail-ins were made law. Well, if they wanted to stop the exodus out of the regional banks, the first thing that they would do is disallow the money markets to invest in the overnight reverse repo market. And in March and April, when all this money, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars, were leaving the regional banks, going to the safety of the too big to fail banks in their money market accounts, the Fed even came out and said we should review this, because the fact that we're allowing the money markets to safely put their money in the overnight reverse repo market, paying 5 1/3% with daily liquidity in a money market, how are the regional banks going to compete when the best they can do is just over 4% in a 1-year CD? You got to lock it up for a year to get just over 4%, or put it in JP Morgan in a money market with daily liquidity at 5 1/3, who would stay in the regional banks that are systemic and that will be bailed in according to the new Dodd-Frank law. Well, they never did that. And all of this money is leaving the regional banks, going to the too big to fail banks, into the money market. But what is even more concerning about that is all of the money leaving the commercial banks, which is actually more than it's leaving the regional banks. They're going directly to treasurydirect.gov, and they're buying short-term treasuries directly from the treasury, because those rates, and this is why the overnight reverse repo market is draining, those rates are higher than the Fed is paying. So that sucking sound you hear is money leaving the regional banks to the commercial banks and leaving the commercial banks directly to the Treasury.